Welcome to episode 2 of WoTTalk, or Wheel of Time Talk, where in this episode, in this order, we will be looking at Rafe Judkins, one of the only people announced to be associated with the show, and what he has been involved with in the past, and kind of judging whether or not we like him, which seems really mean, and I'm sure he's a great guy. Then we'll be going over Bel Tine, and whether or not it established the series well. This will be pretty spoiler-free because it's the first few chapters of the series. Then we'll be going over some spoiler-free general discussion, and then some spoiler-filled comments. I will give a warning before we go ahead and jump into the spoiler-filled comments, but let's go ahead and look at Rafe Judkins. So, this guy has been a writer on quite a few projects, some really good and some I'm not so sure about. First and foremost, he was a writer on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. This is a popular show for sure, and something I'm sure quite a few of you have actually seen. Whether or not this is going to actually be, we can't really say. He was a producer, so we don't really know how much control he really had, whether or not he had entire episodes that were just largely him, but the episodes he did do are highly well-reviewed. It is some of the most well-reviewed episodes of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. according to IMDb and a couple other sites, so that's a good sign, and I'm all for that. In addition, he was a writer for quite a few episodes of Chuck, which is a show, if you have not seen, that is super charming. Not only that, but it's actually the highest reviewed season of Chuck. These are all, super positive things and stuff that I don't consider to be a negative at all. The only thing that he has on here that I'm really nervous about and don't enjoy was he was a co-producer of Hemlock Grove, a show that Netflix did that bombed really hard, if I remember correctly, and I tried to watch it, and it was bad. That's pretty much all I will say on it. Again, he's a co-producer, not the sole producer. God knows how much control he actually had, and since then, he's done some of the best Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.s we've seen as a fandom, but just, that's really what all we can go over. He's posted a couple things on his social media relating to Wheel of Time and his involvement. I have faith in this guy. I'm going to go ahead and say that it's certainly not a negative that he's involved, and we as fans should just give him the benefit of the doubt. There's no reason to get bogged down in the negativity. And I'm excited to see what he'll bring because, yes, Wheel of Time is certainly not as cheesy and, super wholesome as Chuck, and we don't want it to feel like another Marvel TV show, but there's enough diversity in what this guy has, and with the current trends of fantasy trending towards the darker stuff, he is probably going to be smart enough to find a balance between what he's done and the current trends of fantasy to maybe, just maybe, hit the overall tone of Wheel of Time right on the head. That's at least my big hope for this, and I don't want to be crapping on someone who seems like a perfectly nice guy and has certainly done some impressive work under his belt. Really good career all around. I mean, there's solid stuff dating back all the way to 2008. So yeah, he's 2006. I'm sorry, and he was also, if you want to see him in a TV show, he was on Survivor as himself, of course, for one season. So if you want to go see, Rafe Judkins just being himself, go check out his season in 2005 on Survivor. Not something that I thought I would discover going into this, but is certainly a neat little side note to have there. So we're going to go ahead and jump into Bel Tine discussion, a discussion of really the opening of the Wheel of Time. Yes, we went over the prologue before, but this was the first scene we had as an audience going in that's really the actual core of Wheel of Time. This is the beginning, the heart of how we are introduced to this world. It's not trying to set the tone of the world, it's just telling us the story. So we're going to go ahead and jump into some of your comments. So first comment here, I always liked the Bel Tine attack and how Wheel of Time gets off to an adventure fairly fast, and I actually think it was necessary after the prologue in the first book to get the reader hooked. there could have easily been another 5 chapters building, and he went on to say, I forgot to hit read more for this, but basically building the suspense. And I actually agree with this comment. I'm glad there weren't another 5 to 10 chapters. I think it's good that Wheel of Time kicked into high gear, because with how huge this world is, and God, let's just admit it, how big the series is as a whole, spending 5 more chapters at the very beginning kind of sitting in this village really would have felt like a waste of time to me. And I'm right there with you. I'm glad Robert Jordan decided, look, I'll establish a tone in Bel Tine and the Two Rivers in general, just so you know, look how wholesome these people are, but let's go ahead and get to the meat, what people are really looking for. So I completely agree with you. Paddled. I'm sorry, I'm dyslexic, and YouTube names are my worst nightmare. From IPA, my least favorite kind of beer. Hashtag WoTTalk. I think Bel Tine was just what it should be. Two Rivers people are simple farmers, that is certainly said enough times, who live simple lives. They have maybe a handful of holidays every year, and of course they want to celebrate those days however they just can. It really made them seem so ordinary, which is a great starting point for the heroes of the story. Besides, as far as I understand, Jordan himself was from a small village where life was fairly similar to what we have in the Two Rivers. And it goes on to, I forgot to hit read more when I took the screenshot, but basically say it's Robert Jordan's pulling from experience here. You're probably right. I think it was a really wholesome way to start it off, and it's probably why so many people think the Wheel of Time is so wholesome all the way through. They let that initial tone kind of carry with them for 14 books, which is something I've seen from a lot of fans. And guys, I have to say, after rereading the Wheel of Time as many times as I have, it's not as wholesome as a lot of people think. There is torture, murder, rape, like these terrible things happen, not as often as Game of Thrones, but just as detailed as Game of Thrones. And, I don't quite get the, Wheel of Time is so innocent and so wholesome. I'll agree it's more wholesome than Game of Thrones, but it's certainly a lot less wholesome than, let's say, Lord of the Rings, which, Lord of the Rings, I mean, you think Two Rivers is wholesome. My God, the Shire is like where everyone and their mother wants to retire. But I'm gonna agree with you that it was a good way to set up these simple farmers, but I don't think that tone, I don't think you're implying this, I want to make the point that tone really shouldn't carry on to the rest of the series. I mean, oh my God, just look at the Pot on Fane chapters. There's dark stuff that happens in Wheel of Time, especially just off screen. And God, the whole leashes with the Shan Chan, without getting into spoilers, painful to read at times. From Tim Raleigh, what up, Tim? WoTTalk? Okay. I think the Bel Tine scene is fine to begin the story, especially with Rand and Tam walking down the old road and Rand's first sighting of a Myrddraal, and then to establish that this is a sleepy backwoods town that has some strangers stirring up excitement in it. It's a good, albeit hasty, intro to Mat, Perrin, Egwene, and Nynaeve. And I remember first reading it over 20 years ago when the Tropics first attacking. Trollocs, autocorrect got you there, I think. Trollocs first attacking. It was startling, jarring, and a good way to get me to be intrigued. I am agreeing with you. I am 100% down for it, and I think the kind of ominous feel that follows the chapters after the Myrddraal sighting was wonderful from Robert Jordan, because yes, while this town is pasted as just such a simple little folk, almost Shire-esque in some ways, having that initial dark moment really lent to this presence being there in the Two Rivers all the way up until the attack, especially the scene with the crow. I know the attack probably did more for overall shock value, but in terms of creepiness, the crow that watches them and doesn't fly away, which I don't think anyone mentioned in the comments, to me, it made a feeling of just something being wrong, something off in this overly wholesome village. And I think it was masterful. I think that having those moments that really make the reader question, is something going wrong here? Oh, there definitely is, hooks you. And after the prologue being so epic but kind of confusing, having it being so grounded with this overly ominous feel was the perfect kickoff for me, and that's just my opinion. All right, Drew Corte, WoTTalk, love the idea in the channel. Thanks, I love you. Let's get married. Question for the episode 2: how strong do you think the apple brandy was that Tam always made for Bel Tine? I'd certainly want to taste. That's a great question. I actually spent some time working at a distillery in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and I've have quite a bit of experience now trying all kinds of different things. Unfortunately, we never had apple brandy. There was some that was going to be ready in a couple of years, but I left before it was. I have had apple brandy once before, but I've been around the process and making this kind of stuff a whole lot. And when it comes to some farmer making some stuff with his kid, I promise you it put a little more extra hair in your chest than was maybe necessary, because that's just the general mentality a lot of these guys have when it comes to making their stuff, which is totally awesome, and I'm not condemning in any way, shape, or form. I'm actually slightly hungover right now. That's actually true. Bedtime Bookworm, love the idea for a series. Oh wow. Bedtime Bookworm, if you have not already, check out her channel. She is one of the best booktubers on this whole site and deserves way more of an audience than she currently has, so please go check her out. She is a joy to watch and has great insights into all kinds of different books and theories, and she's covered the Wheel of Time a few times, so go ahead and check her out. Back to the comment. Love this idea for a series. I personally love the Bel Tine scene and love that juxtaposition. I'm right there with you. The Trolloc attack still gives me goosebumps, as it should. My main concern for the beginning of the book are the similarities to early story of Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I see what you're going for there. I'm hoping people I'm hoping people don't just give up without seeing the bigger picture. Oh, and I'm a bit torn too, but I think I would rather they simplify the story and do it well over try to include too much depth. Yeah, I agree, actually. Game of Thrones side sounds good to me. And I forgot to hit read more in the comment, but I did read this before. Yeah, I would hate to see them stretch themselves way too thin. I think they need to reduce Wheel of Time down to Game of Thrones scale, which is still a huge scale. Don't get me wrong, like that's still great, but Wheel of Time is just like 4 notches above that, and I think they need to taper it down because, guys, just realistically, you can't do it on a TV show unless every season was 20 episodes and there was one season for each book. You couldn't do it, and let's be honest, they're not going to have the budget or the patience to do that. So I think scaling it down, you're right there. Back to what Bedtime Bookworm said about the similarities to Lord of the Rings. I agree. I think if you kind of just read it without kind of looking into it or trying to go into some more depth at the very beginning, it can feel super Lord of the Rings, especially with the somewhat creepy vibes that occasionally go off, because, the Ring kind of gives some creepy vibes to the beginning of the Lord of the Rings if you kind of really look into it. And I think that can be done as well with Wheel of Time. But I think the difference here is the different amount of time spent setting it up. I mean, it's years in the Shire that goes by before Frodo leaves. I think the time between when Gandalf leaves and comes back is around a decade. And while it may not be a huge amount of time book-wise, for the reader, I think it establishes a way different feel than The Lord of the Rings, which from when we pick up with Rand to when we leave is somewhere between 24 and 48 hours, and not much more than that. So I think, to me, that sets it apart enough. It'll certainly be different from people who have only seen the Lord of the Rings movie, and I think your point is 100% accurate there, because the Lord of the Rings movie has way more of a Wheel of Time kicking off feel to it. So I think you've hit the nail on the head, so to speak. So we're going to jump into some non-spoiler comments here, guys. Those were all the Bel Tine comments that I found. There were more questions and comments about Bel Tine, but they were just kind of repeating what was already said, so I just kind of picked the ones that stood out a little bit to me, or were the most concise, eloquently written version of that question. So if you want to be the one picked, just make your question concise and well written, and it'll most likely get picked, because with my dyslexic ass reading these on the fly, I need them to be like that. The super long comments I try to respond to in the comment section, but when it comes to reading them just for my own sanity and my horrible dyslexia, I'm not going to make you guys sit here while I struggle through a comment. So jumping into general non-spoiler comments, how do you think the TV series will do the ageless face? I think they'll drop it. I think they will not adapt it because that is something you can't, in my opinion, practically make on a TV screen without it coming across as super weird over time. So imagine every scene hundreds of actresses are in, they have to do either a bunch of weird makeup stuff or a bunch of weird CGI stuff, bloating their budgets for the episode, really hurting a long-term TV show that's going to try to hit maybe 10 seasons or something. I just don't see it being a good thing for them to incorporate. I know some people might hate me for saying that, but I think they should just drop it. The Aes Sedai are certainly mysterious and powerful enough, especially with the initial kind of contrasting Moraine to the Two Rivers people. I don't think she needs an ageless face to increase that. Now, granted, they could maybe purposely cast some actresses that have kind of this harder to place age about them. But I don't think, and they might just do kind of little subtle makeup things to make them look a little better than most people, but I certainly don't think they will go for like a full CGI mask on everybody. That would be crazy, or like a whole huge makeup ordeal, like on the level of like, Vision from the Avengers. Not that it would ever be that big, but I think you get what I'm going for. I just don't think it's practical. And now next up we have from Michael Graham. As far as women in power and fantasy, not to harp on this series again, but the Black Company also has a similar... Oh, yeah, so I wanted to pick out this comment because every time I do a big thing on the Wheel of Time, the Black Company is mentioned, which made me pick it up a while back. And I'm just going to get this out of the way. It didn't click with me. I, for some reason, just couldn't get into it. Everything about it seemed great, but for me, it just... I made it what's the booktuber term for did not read? It's DNR. I made it DNR, D not finish, DNF. There we go. Just because it didn't quite vibe with me, and I can't put it exactly why. That being said, I will try it again. I will pick that up again in the future. It's just with my my to be read on like my notepad that I have is officially over 100 books long, so it'll be tricky to see where that goes, but it'll probably be bumped up to a priority at some point. From Spencer Greene, we have the same last name, my friend, but I have an E. How do you think they should break the books into seasons? I think they could condense the slog into 1 or 2 seasons. I think they could condense the slog into 1 season, no problem. Okay, so here's my opinion. 2 books per season, at least at the beginning, because the beginning books move a little slower than I think the later ones. And in the TV show, you really need to hook people with quite a bit of action right away. That's important. And with only following this one group, especially in book 1, we're just following this one group, you can really burn through book 1 easily, especially with so much world building going on that can be done visually much quicker. As one comment mentioned already, I think it would be fair to do at least the first couple of books in 1 season, and then from there, depending on the book, it might need its own season. Like Lord of Chaos needs its own season, no doubt. They need to build Rand being in that situation for a long time. See how I subverted the spoiler there? I almost said it, but you guys who know what I mean, know what I mean, and you guys who don't know what I mean, don't know what I mean, so I think we're all right. All right. And now you got Matthew McConaughey for some reason. From P. Camino, is that a Star Wars reference or a name? I don't know. Either way, I like it. I would like them to convey the size and scope of Robert Jordan's world building because I think it's important to feel the weight and the overwhelming responsibility of Rand and others' shoulders. Shrinking the world in any way would be a mistake, but they can't try to cover everything. They need to allude and hint and show flashbacks like in Lord of the Rings movies to convey the bigness. Okay, you hit on something that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I don't like flashbacks for exposition. It really pulls me out, but it can be done well. I'm really willing to admit that. I just don't like it when it's like in the middle of a scene and you suddenly cut to a flashback. I like the Lord of the Rings at the beginning, let's set it up that way. And I think they should use the prologue like that and maybe show some of the more, world setting up events that happened, like the breaking and all these things, in a very beginning exposition dump. I think the first episode should be like 20 minutes of just, holy crap, like build this world, and then 20 minutes of basically Rand in walking down the Bel Tine up to the Trolloc attack beginning, and then the first episode would be over. I think that would establish, okay, here's this world's events kicking off again oh my god, Trollocs and Myrddraal are attacking this town, cut. And then season 2 or episode 2 picks up from right there. That is my ideal pilot for the Wheel of Time at this time. So from Josh Saunders, have you considered doing a live Q&A? I have a few questions I'd make donations to ask you. I have heard from many YouTubers you don't do a Q&A until you have about 10,000 subs, because otherwise, or live Q&A, because otherwise you hop onto your live, like 2 people show up, and it's just you having a conversation with 2 people, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I would certainly like it to be more of a community event. And I think I will celebrate 10,000 subscribers by doing my first live Q&A. Go ahead and hold me to that, guys. So at 10K subs, I will do a live Q&A for y'all, and I'll schedule it around as many of y'all's times to make it as easy as possible, like a Saturday midday or something like that, when most people are, chill pretty much still. So this is a rather long comment, so I'm not going to read all of it. It's from Chasten Ashton, and it's about basically the dynamic between Rand, Perrin, and Matt, and basically how these 3 people, upon the first read through, can seem to kind of ditch their friendship pretty quick and have a lot of distrust. And the reason I want to incorporate this in the spoiler-free section is because he then goes back and says, upon rereading it, it became much clearer that there's just a lot more going on there with these life-changing events. It makes sense, and I'm just agreeing with him. I think he's making a great point here, and that, yes, these people's friendship never shatters, but a large point of the first few books is testing these guys' friendships, is putting them through the ringer and seeing what, comes out the other side. It's really about friendship. So I like his comment here, and I think he's right that, upon first glance, it can feel like Rand, Perrin, and Matt kind of screw each other over, but it really is just more realistic about what happens to these guys. From Daniel, hey, Dumoulin. My biggest concern about the Wheel of Time TV show is that the tone of the story might change. The reason I love Wheel of Time so much is it's so bright, colorful, and optimistic. I'm afraid that people making it might try to replicate Game of Thrones and making it dark and gritty. Okay. Yeah. The reason I picked this comment was because I agree but disagree. Yes, the tone of Wheel of Time is very different than the tone of Game of Thrones, and it is very bright and colorful, but I would disagree with the optimistic. I think the big conflict in the Wheel of Time is about the conflicting, bright, colorful world with this horrific shadow encroaching on. As the series goes further and further down the road, that shadow becomes bigger and bigger, and I think that should be really the tone they're going for, this initial bright beauty that's then creeped in and overrun by this kind of dark thing, which I think is why Bel Tine is a great reflection of the whole tone of the series as a whole, because yes, things seem perfect, then they get a bit creepy, then they get bad, then oh my god, everything's burning down. So I think it should kind of follow that same trajectory. Billy Alexander, how you doing, Billy? I really hope they keep the genders the same. They don't need to change them. I agree largely. However, I think the race should be changed. That I completely agree with. Most fantasy series and movies have practically all white casts. I agree with everything you're saying here. It's so boring. I get that these things are European influenced, but why can't Matt be black? It wouldn't change anything about his character. Why couldn't Perrin be Asian? Let's include some people. Let's be a little more mixed up, because I'm tired of seeing the same actors in the same types of roles, all the same look. It's hard to even tell all these white people apart, and I'm white. So it gets tricky. Like, dear God, watching Game of Thrones, I can't keep all the secondary characters straight because it's just all white dudes that look the same. And I'm like, can we get some diversity up in here, please? And if they are a different race, they're from a foreign land for some reason, which Wheel of Time will probably end up doing too, especially, of course, with Sean Chan, because they're black. Now, next up, we have Brian Jacobs. I probably just pissed off a lot of people with that last answer, but it's how I feel. Hey, I got a text. Brian Jacobs, I have a question about the Saidin and Saidar in the Wheel of Time world. If women happen to identify as man, basically saying, what does people's gender identity affect which half they would touch? No, because it's based off sex, not gender, and those are different things. On a serious note, gender identity is a big PC issue, and in my opinion, one of the reasons why Wheel of Time will never be made. And I actually completely disagree with this. I'm going to go in the opposite direction. I think it's one of the reasons it will be made, because gender is such a huge theme of the Wheel of Time, and it's such a big political issue right now. I think it would play right into that and be viewed by a lot more people, especially if they took the actual tone Wheel of Time does, which is that sex doesn't matter, just respect people's minds and move forward. I mean, some of the best fighters at Wheel of Time are women, and some of the best thinkers are men, and it just doesn't matter. It's all about the person. And I think as the TV show just carries the book's message of that as well as the books do, we're fine. Okay, I think I got a couple more here. Could do a video where you go over a top 10 favorite Wheel of Time moments. I will absolutely do that for you, Jonah. I will do that for you. Awesome first video in your new series. I have to stop halfway through because of spoilers. I'd love to read more about Luz, Theron, and the Breaking. I would love to... do you think Brandon Sanderson should do a prequels? This is why I picked out this comment. No, I don't think Brandon Sanderson should do a prequel or a spinoff or anything. The Wheel of Time is done for me in terms of story. I know there was talks about a spinoff series with Brandon Sanderson doing all kinds of stuff. That would be cool. I would read it, but it wouldn't be the same. I want the Wheel of Time to be done in terms of story because it was so perfect. It was such a good turning of the wheel that if they added anything on for me, it would be like Solo and Star Wars. It would just be like, why'd you guys feel the need to do this? I don't like it. I don't know. I couldn't see myself loving it like the Wheel of Time. I even have a little bit of trouble with New Spring Novel for that reason. So I get why some people want it. I know some people want to go back to this world, and I return to it all the time in my rereads, but I don't want them to add more. I think there's certainly enough content for us for now. Rakim, hey, you've been a long time, or R-I-A-K-M, sorry, I don't know how to say that exactly. You've been a long time subscriber and commenter, and I appreciate you, man. I think the weaving in Wheel of Time should be switched perspectives depending on which characters we are with. So if it's more Moraine, yeah, okay. But when this is something that a lot of people have said in the comments again and again, and I completely agree. Yeah, it should change on perspective. As soon as someone commented this a long time ago, I was like, yes. At the beginning, it should just be this wondrous thing where people are doing magic, and as more of our characters are jumping in and participating in the magic, I want it to be something we see more detail of, especially with the stuff that really happens later on. I think the actual weaving would be a real spectacle in itself. The more powerful moments, we need to see it as viewers in detail. That needs to be a big thing. And the last spoiler-free thing, there is a 1999 Wheel of Time game. It's a first-person shooter that follows Elena Sedai for Windows. I'm well aware of it. I ordered it, and I will be doing a Let's Play of it for you guys. That should be starting sometime later this week. Look forward to that. I am not a gamer, and I've jerry-rigged up a Let's Play rig here, and you will see me cussing and swearing at games because I get so frustrated with them, but it should be fun. Don't worry, this channel is not turning into a Let's Play channel. My God, I'm not turning into that. Just for the Wheel of Time game, I'm going to go ahead and jump in. So at this point, if you want to avoid spoilers, get out. We don't want you here. Go finish the series because I am jumping into the spoiler comments right now. I'm not completely sure of this, but in the Shara prophecies say that a savior or something of that sort that can use an unknown power will come to Shara and set the slaves free and overthrow the government. I was curious if that is Rand on a down the road. This would make sense given the Rand new unknown abilities at the end of the series and what Demon Dread trying to exploit. Your thoughts? That could be Rand, or it could be Matt. I think both of them fit that perfectly. Because Matt's abilities are certainly unknown as well, the lucky little scoundrel. So I think it could be either one. I don't think Matt's luck is taken away at the end of the series. I could be misremembering there. But if it's not Matt, it is Rand. And if it's not Rand, it's Matt to me. It's one of those two, and I think it's about a 50-50 toss-up. Unless Matt's luck was taken away, then it's absolutely Rand. Flat Brim. I like your name. WoT question: how bad you want to read a Matt spinoff, Matt and Tuon theories in the story that wasn't written? As I've said, I don't want this to be made. I'm very content with how the Wheel of Time ended, and if it was made, I'd read it, but it'd be kind of a begrudging read. And I like theories to remain theories. I want the speculation of what happens with Matt in the future to be all about theories. I don't want it to be told to us. I want this to be the time where the fans can step in and make up their own. So that's me. Daniel, in terms of video game premise, how about this? You were born several years, 2030, after the events of basically the last battle between the world balance between the White Tower, Black Tower, the Freelands, the Shan Empire. When the prophecy emerges of the rebirth of our Hawkwing, you are tasked with finding the young lord and shaping his destiny. Yeah, I think that's fine. As for Shara, wasn't it hinted that the Shan-Chans really became intrigued with Shara and Damani after they realized they could break them in the Aedom very quickly? That's why I think it could be Matt. Because if he goes there and has to step in between the Shan-Chan and the Shara trying to basically abuse each other. So back to your video game thing. I'm okay with that. I would prefer something a little more less specific story oriented. I just want to explore and experience the Wheel of Time world. But if it was going to be here's the story, you have to walk it, that seems like a very good one and a decent pitch in its own. So I would play that game for sure. But I'm always for more open world stuff, guys. I like making my own path. Ben Greene, LOL, this is apparently a communist channel. It's not, it's our channel, not mine. Yeah, it is. This is it's a Brotherhood. Great first episode in terms of Amazon. Up to this point, the response having picked Wheel of Time was that rumors and speculation, but now it's confirmed. Michael Cera needs to play Rand, with Luz Theron and the pedo stash being, with him in the pedo stash being Luz Theron. The Bel Tine Festival is great. It established the world as protagonist came on. Yeah, it did. Okay, I'm going to cut past that one. Sorry, man. I'm trying to cut for time here. I think it's interesting how every time a red gets in a position of power, it ends disastrously for the tower. Maybe it's the people attracted to the Aja. After all, if you dislike men, how can you expect to deal with kings and nobles? True that. Plus, if you see their downfall, it usually ends up being jealousy or greed. I disagree. I think the big failing of the Red Aja is not jealousy or greed, it's ego. They constantly see themselves as better or bigger than everyone else, which to me is their biggest problem. They think they know the answers, which, well, let's be honest, a lot of Aes Sedai have that problem, but it seems to be amplified in the Red. It's arrogance. They are, not to bring him into this episode again, they're the Kanye West of Ajas, and they don't really listen to others. Is it going to be a thing where Kanye West is mentioned once per WoTTalk episode? It's a possibility, and I'm not against it, even though I don't like the guy. WoTTalk, first off, really nice to see some talking, keeping the interest in Wheel of Time alive. It'll never die, as long as I'm alive. Secondly, I forgot which book, but when Rand tries to bring the dead girl back in the Stone of Tyr, that is book 4, or book 3? Book 4. Stone of Tyr back to life, and Moraine stops him. I've always wondered, do you think he could, at this point, or late in the series, actually brought her back? No. I don't think Rand, even at the very end when he has those crazy unknown powers, will ever be able to stop death. It's just a theory, but I think in the Wheel of Time world, death is completely final. If an individual dies, they're done. You cannot bring them back because, one, their soul or whatever it is in this world is taken to something like, the Horn of Valir or the Dream World or something like that, or they're then born back into the pattern. I think they're basically in the hands of the creator, which, coming from me, that sounds uber religious and weird, but you know what I'm saying? I don't think the physical body is what matters. I think in the Wheel of Time world, it's much more about their connection to the pattern, and once their physical body is dead, they are no longer with that physical body. So I don't think Rand could have ever succeeded, because the limitations of Saiyadin and Saidar and the true source go beyond him being able to reach in and pull back a quote-unquote soul. That's why I think Moraine was so horrified by what he was trying to do. I think she knew, but Rand did not. And that is no reflection on my actual views of the real world. I want to make that clear. Spencer Greene again. What up, man? WoTTalk. One thing I'd always thought would have been interesting, even though I wouldn't have actually changed it, is if Tam had been the one to fight Demon Dread. I don't know why, but I feel like that's something that could have been even more emotional for Rand in the last battle. Sure would have been emotional for Rand to watch Demon Dread massacre Tam. I don't think Tam could or would have stood a chance against Demon Dread. That would have been... Tam was never about fighting for me. Yeah, he was a great fighter, but he was much more about his relationship with Rand. Meanwhile, Lan needed a big, epic final fight, in my opinion. He really needed that moment. Josh Saunders. As much as I love Matt's story, I would really be interchangeable with a Gawain. Quarterstaff, good weapon for female fighter. The luck as a power. Changed Daughter of the Nine Moons to Prince. As mistrusting of Aes Sedai, she could have been a connoisseur, carousing as Matt, being flirty, eye for the lads, etc. Matt could have been a male channeler to stand beside Rand as someone he can trust. could have been a good chance to build a focused relationship instead of Egwene going to White Tower. Whoa, that's a change for the series. Holy God, Josh. That is worth discussion on its own, and I don't have time to really get into that, but man, that is one heck of a change. I can't say I hate it or love it, because it's so big I need to like take an afternoon to think about it. What do you think about the idea of the White Tower? Do you find it to be a positive force in the world, or more like a tyrannical group that seeks to control every nation? Let's stick to early books in the series, meaning before Doom Eyes Wells. The more I read Wheel of Time, the more I find Aes Sedai a contemptible group of bullies. I'm only on book 8. So, you're not totally wrong. I think they're the closest thing they're the closest this world has to absolute power, and absolute power corrupts. Even close to absolute power will corrupt. And I think the Aes Sedai feel they're above corruption, which is an even more dangerous combination. So I agree with you that they certainly need their ego checked. I wouldn't say they're bad or good. I would say they're a collection of individuals, some meaning well and some meaning good, and kind of lumping them all together would be unfair. I don't know why I'm taking such a like political answer to this, but it's how I feel. I don't group them all as a group. I'd same thing with the Black Tower. There's great people in the Black Tower, and there's horrid people in the Black Tower. Legacy TCG1. How do you feel about the TV series not opening with breaking, but starting with the discovery of the true power? As I said before, I agree with the first 20 minutes, the first episode just being a giant flashback covering all this stuff to build the world, and then just have Bel Tine be about 20 to 30 minutes after that, and end with the Trolloc attack beginning. I think that would be a good first episode for me. And that is the last comment for WoTTalk episode 2, y'all. I hope you enjoyed the show. Like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support the channel and what I do here and increase the quality of this channel continually. I love y'all. I appreciate it. And I cannot reiterate enough how much you should check out the channel I mentioned earlier. I've completely forgotten the name because of my brain. But hope you guys enjoyed this. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.